This was something that was thought of in 2016 with a former consultant, Peter Hantz. He has since retired, and we've teamed up with NeighborWorks New Horizons. But we still are committed to that original plan of a typical New England farm community with the big house, little house, back house, barn. I just want to mention before I turn it over to the rest of our team that as David had mentioned, we're going to be heavily supporting the affordable demographics. Affordable doesn't mean personally affordable. It's 50% of area median income. That's the middle slice. And 50% is right in the middle of that. It can go up a little bit and down a little bit. But just to give you an idea, besides, some of those jobs and careers I mentioned, 50% of AMI for this area, and includes several towns because we're New Haven. It includes New Haven, Hamden, Meriden, Cheshire, Woodbridge, Brantford, North Brantford, several other towns. So 50% of area median income for a family of 4. 2022 is $56,300. 60% is $67,560. 70% is $78,820. Sounds like a pretty good income. Do you go on Realtor or in the Cheshire Herald and look at what rents are currently in the town of Cheshire, if you can find one? Sorry. What I found on Realtor for a 2-bedroom apartment, the lowest was $1,700. And it ranged up to $3,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. There was only one 3-bedroom apartment advertised for $2,500. The Housing Authority is committed to increasing affordable housing in the town of Cheshire, which is less than 4%. The state requires at least 10%. Our mission is to provide decent, safe, and affordable housing. And we hope you like the project that they're going to present.
Thank you. I just want to remind you guys that I don't know what's going on with the mic tonight, but keep it close to you so we can pick it all up, please.
Good evening. Let me adjust this. For the record, my name is Todd Ritchie. I'm a principal civil engineer and also a board certified environmental engineer and licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm in the office of SLR Consulting, which is right down the street on Route 10. I'm also the principal design manager for this project. The applicant for this project, as previously mentioned, is Jack's Farm Housing LLC. The property owner is currently Dr. Jack Greenspan. And we're currently proceeding under a purchase agreement as far as this application is concerned. The subject property consists of 2 existing parcels located, or parcels totaling 5.43 acres east and northeast of the intersection of South Main Street, and which is Route 10, and Rising Trail Road. The parcels are located between South Main Street and Mulberry Court. Parcel 90-167, which is the west parcel, and this shows the outline of the parcels. They're bisected in the middle. So this slide shows both parcels shaded in the middle. The west parcel has is approximately 2.18 acres, has frontage on South Main Street, and parcel 90-167-1 is 3.25 acres, and it's on the east, and it's an interior parcel. The parcels are currently located in the R40 zone. There's currently an existing single-family home on the property built in the 1950s. As you can see, it's about central to slightly to the west in this image. It includes an attached former dentist's office, a swimming pool, deck, patio, and asphalt driveway. The remainder of the property is undeveloped, consisting of lawn, meadow, and wetlands, or woodlands, rather. The property is currently connected to public water supply and has on-site septic systems for domestic sewage waste from the house and the dentist office. The existing house is situated at a high point on the property at a distance of approximately 200 feet from and an elevation approximately 12 feet above South Main Street. The ground surface on the property is sloped predominantly toward the west and to the east. Accordingly, stormwater runoff on the property currently travels across the lawn and woodland areas and enters South Main Street to the west and discharges across the property line to the east into an off-site wetland corridor. There is a previous man-made depression approximately 4 to 5 feet deep in the northeast area of the property, which intercepts and infiltrates a portion of stormwater runoff flowing east as well as onto the site from the property to the north. In November 2018 and February 2019, a registered soil scientist from SLR was on the property to determine whether wetland soils were present in this superficial depression, as water has been observed at times within this area. The soil scientist determined the soil type and subsurface characteristics within the depression did not meet the Connecticut regulatory criteria for wetland soils. And this determination is on record with the Wetlands Commission that was submitted at that time in late 2019. The proposed affordable housing development includes 45 living units in 3 buildings, along with a separate community building. There are 2 farmhouse-style buildings with 15 total townhouse units and a barn-style building with 30 apartments. In conjunction with the special permit application, a petition for a zone change map has been submitted by the applicant to place the subject properties in the affordable housing overlay zone. According to section 44A.8.1 of the zoning regulations, a maximum of 54 living units are permissible on the property based on the net buildable area of 5.43 acres. So this is a site rendering produced by our landscape architecture group, showing the 3, keep this here, sorry, showing the 3 residential buildings, which one is, get a cursor here, if possible. One is here, and one is here, and one is in the back here. And this building here is the community building right up front. The property will have 2 driveway accesses, south and a north access. The south will coincide with the existing driveway access and be opposite of Rising Trail Road. And the north access will be further up near the property line. There's parking along the community building and also in between. There's a main driveway court that circles around with pull-off areas onto pavers for temporary parking for delivery vehicles or the like. Parking up front, accessible parking at various locations, which I'll discuss in a moment. And, the driveway wraps around the backside of the building, if I could see where my cursor is. Sorry about that. It might be easier for me to point.
The mic, you can pull the microphone off of that and
that's-
take it
thank
around.
you. That's easier. Driveway wraps around the back of the barn building, which is the apartment building. Has parking in the rear.
Mr. Bowman.
You need to let the audience see more than you need to let us see. We have everything up here on paper.
I'm not sure if they can see it very well, but sure,
I
absolutely.
think that's better. Thank you.
And then around the backside, the driveway loops around and has an exit out the north. There's,
Oh, I don't think it, no, she's just asking if it.
it actually does a little bit. Would you like me to try? That better? Sure thing. Would you like me to back up or would you like me to keep going? I'll just describe it. So this is the south driveway, that's north driveway as proposed. We have access that comes in here and there's parking along this. Thank you, that's helpful too, thanks. Use a laser, but you can't use them on the screens. So this is the parking, and this is the community building. This is one of the townhouse buildings. This is another townhouse building. And here is the barn building in the back. This is parking for the community building. And then you have this driveway courtyard here. As I mentioned, you have parking on either side. And then you also have a central focal point here, which has just a sort of rain shelter pavilion. And then you come around this way with the driveway, which wraps around the backside of this building with more parking, and then outside and around to the north.
I'm sorry, we have Mr. Strollo does have a question up here.
Sure.
From the rear parking lot of the farthest building, what's the property line measurement from the edge of the parking lot to the property line closest?
I don't have that dimension, but I can tell you what the building is, and I can get you that dimension for the end of the
Like that
presentation.
dimension,
Sure.
Mr. Bowman.
Yeah, you should get us the dimensions from building to the nearest house, from parking lot to the nearest house, from property line to the nearest house. I'd like to have all that information,
House or property line?
property lines, so we know.
Yes, I have the property. I have buildings to property lines, which is typical in a.
But what about parking lot to property line?
I don't have that.
Okay. but
That's
you've got
not,
building
that's
to-
not normally listed in a zoning data table.
You have building to house?
I have building to property line.
Okay. If you could get us building to house too, I think that's going to help us a little bit.
Okay, well, I'm sure we could get a list of things that you guys would like to
Right.
see, and we can gather that for you. But as I go along, I'll tell you what we normally present.
I don't know if you describe what's this big circle here going from one side to around?
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet, but I do
Okay,
have
that's what
presentation.
I'm
Thanks.
trying to figure that one out.
Okay. So as I segue to the next transition in my presentation is zoning data, as was mentioned, max coverage for this zone. The affordable housing zone is 20%, as proposed is 11.8%. The front setback is 25 feet minimum, 25 feet is provided. The side setback is 25 feet, 47.1 feet is provided. The rear setback is 50 feet, 246.5 feet is provided. The lot frontage is 50 feet required, 399.8 feet provided, and building height is 50 feet, which I'll have the architect address, but all buildings will be less than or equal to 50 feet. Parking required is 2 spaces per unit, so that's 90 spaces. Provided is 100 spaces. ADA accessible spaces required is 5 per the 2022 state building code. Accessible spaces provided is 7. Utilities, water, public water supply will be provided from the existing water main along the east side of South Main Street. The on-site main will be a continuous loop as requested by the fire department with 2 connections to the existing main in South Main Street, and will also include at least 2 on-site fire hydrants. two are shown. The fire department has requested potentially an additional fire hydrant. Sanitary sewer, conceptual approval was previously granted to the Cheshire Housing Authority by the WPCA for a multifamily housing development with similar number of units to connect to the existing sanitary sewer system, either by gravity sewer or low-pressure sewer services and main extensions. The applicant has pursued discussions with neighboring property owners in an attempt to design a gravity sewer connection to the property from Mulberry Court or South Pond Circle. These discussions did not result in an agreement for private sewer easement access across adjacent properties. Therefore, a gravity sewer connection to the town sewer system cannot be designed for the development. The sanitary sewer system on the property has been designed with gravity sewers serving each individual building, which discharge to a private sewer main to a private on-site low-pressure sewer pump station. The low-pressure discharge from the force main from the pump station is proposed to extend across South Main Street, approximately 75 feet up Rising Trail Road, and connect to the existing town low-pressure sewer main, consistent with the WPCA's 2019 conceptual approval. The sanitary pump station will consist of a subsurface chamber with above-grade control panel, generator and fuel tank within a fenced and screened area. Electric to the site will be provided underground from an existing pole to a new pad-mounted transformer. All heat sources for living spaces will be electric. As far as drainage goes, soils are well drained, sand and gravel at the rear of the property and compact with shallow bedrock at the front of the property. Stormwater system design is designed to collect, treat, and infiltrate the stormwater from impervious roof, driveway, patio, and walkway areas, and from pervious lawn areas as well. Treatment is accomplished through two hydrodynamic separators at the north and south of the rear parking lot and via a grass filter strip along the eastern edge of the rear parking lot. Storage of stormwater will occur within the proposed underground chambers and in the proposed stormwater basin. The stormwater drainage system has been designed to retain and infiltrate 100% of the runoff volume for up to and including a 100-year storm event. Happy to answer any questions or to outline the features on the plan.
Mr. Natale.
A couple questions. So I see the drawing that was included in our town planner's letter to the commission. Do you have an actual site plan showing,
Yes,
could you have it for us? Do we have it? With all the lighting and walkways and everything?
yeah, it's sheet LA
Where's that?
in the sheet set.
I didn't see it.
It was submitted.
I didn't see it.
Was, I know the architecturals were in your packet. Was the site plan also included?
I didn't see it. No. So while Mr. Gooden's working on that,
Sure.
a couple questions there. So, again, in the site plan, can you talk about the lighting? What the lighting plan is for the area?
Yes. Can you see this?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Turn it back just slightly. Light poles are proposed throughout the site at standard distances. Light poles are shown in these symbols right here, which is standard. And they're along this side of this driveway here. They have them in the middle, one here and one here, in various locations. Along the back side here, pointed in this direction, some bollard styles here. And then over here, some additional lighting along the driveway to meet minimum lighting
What type of
requirements.
light poles? What type of lights?
We can provide additional information. We've sent it off to a lighting supplier. So next meeting, we can provide that information before the next meeting for review.
I think it's really important for us to know because we want to make sure we're not lighting up the area.
Yeah, we do that standard photometric plan. Again, that's not something our office produces, so that we have to rely on a lighting vendor to provide that.
Gotcha. And lastly, I think for now, you may hit this later. So on the back of the property, facing where that loop is, the parking spaces are facing that loop and they're facing the properties that are in the rear there. What kind of buffer is there? Are there trees, bushes? Or are you going to have 23 spaces or 20 some odd spaces with the lights going directly to those properties behind?
Right now, there's existing trees behind there. We'd be happy to add, we do have a landscaping plan, and we'd be happy to provide additional landscaping in that area to provide additional buffer. Let me go back to the color plan. That's probably easiest to see. But here's the landscaping plan right here that with all the call outs for landscaping. You can see that.
Listen, we can't, I need to have them do their presentation, and then it'll be an orderly fashion wherever it comes up for questions. No one will be denied the chance to ask questions, but we can't have just people yelling from the audience. I'm sorry, sir. Now you know. I'm not jumping on anyone's throat. I'm just like, I can't let you speak without being at the microphone. So
And I don't know that we have the landscaping plan either.
I think Mr. Glidden went to get something.
Well, we submitted all the plans, so I don't know what happened internally, but
Okay, good. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
sure. If you would like, I know that there's some questions that are jumping ahead based on plans that you didn't have. I'd be happy to walk through each plan or whatever plan you like in specific detail to the level of detail that you would like me to.
Well, again, I'd just like to,
We had it on a smaller scale, so we did have it.
Okay,
It's just that this is a little bit easier to,
absolutely.
so I'd just like to go back to just that, the buffer there for, again, 20 some odd parking spots facing those rear properties. What's, how much space, how much distance is there between those parking spots? And what's that buffer that we see there in green on the back?
This is the rendering of the site as it exists today with existing vegetation in the rear. We did position plantings all around the site and including in the rear. There's there's additional plantings that can be added for concerns such as headlights in the rear if something such as a fence wouldn't address that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, when we're looking at it, we don't want to interfere with the quality of life of somebody that's behind there, again, with 20 some odd cars, potentially with their headlights facing.
A lot of times we've seen a berm with a fence on top of the berm.
Well, we do have a berm here.
There is a
So
berm.
there is a berm here, but when you have a berm, in this case, this is impounding the area that's the stormwater area, that's infiltration basin. So what happens is,
Mr. Chairman, maybe just to answer the question. So if you turn to the site plan, the distance for the edge of the parking lot to the eastern property line, at the closest spot, it's 175 feet. Then it gets, as you're going toward the north, it kind of goes in an angle and it's about 195 feet from the edge of the parking lot to the property line to the east.
Michael, are you talking about the property lines on Mulberry Court? Is that the name of the street?
Correct.
Mr. Selma.
Yeah, along the same lines, the east would be to the right of that picture. It looks like there's a decent amount of buffer, trees, grass, whatever. What about the south and the north? I know there's houses, there's the veterinary hospital below it or south of it. North of it is residential houses, I believe. And I have the same concern as far as buffering and lights and sound and everything else. So is there anything other than, what kind of natural vegetation would be left to buffer that section or side?
which side?
The north side where the residentials are.
Well, as you can see, the roadway's within feet of the property line with a retaining wall. So there's already vegetation there on the other side, but there's not vegetation between that driveway and the property line as shown.
Okay, you said there was a retaining wall going in there,
Yeah, it's a short retaining wall.
but enough to cover headlights and whatnot, probably.
Yeah, it's going to stick up like a fieldstone wall.
Yeah.
For decorative purposes too.
Oh, cool. All right, thank you.
Was that the end of your presentation, or did you have more?
Yeah, I mean, that's the overview. I'd be happy to go in more detail. I know that you all are focused on various aspects of the plans, and you didn't even have some of the
We
plans.
didn't have the real, yeah.
So,
Mr. Picato has a question, and then Ms. Downs after.
One quick one. You said it was all electric. I think you were going through pretty quick.
yes, the only location that fuel might potentially be stored would be for a emergency generator for something such as the sewage pump station, which is this location here. So this location has a fence around this area and vegetation.
Ms. Downs, question?
Yeah, just, that's not a public road going through there, correct?
No,
Oh, okay.
correct. And to describe this further for the gentleman over here who asked, this is just a walking path along the top of this berm. So this berm creates the area that captures the water. So once this is graded off, there's a flat top, and it's just an extension of just basically an area where somebody could take a walk around that area. It just adds to the feature, in the back as far as nature is concerned.
Okay, commission members, any more questions for him? Mr. Strollo?
Would you say this project is higher up over the houses and properties behind it and beside it? Like the veterinarian hospital is lower in topography than that, and this is the higher part of the area?
Yeah, this is definitely a high point.
Yeah. it's a high-
That's where the house is already. It
yeah,
sits on the
it
property.
sits kind of
correct, yes.
on a hill.
And we
Okay.
are trimming down that hill by several feet. So
Okay.
so the
then-
very top
so
of
then
it.
the people that border the property that are on what's it? Millbury Court, right?
Mhm.
Are they in a lower grade? So where this would be, they'd be looking up at it?
I haven't.
Trying to get a, because
Yeah, I haven't reviewed that, but I mean, potentially, I
Is
I
it
don't know.
topography, like, looking at the map of the topography, it looks like the houses are definitely lower by like 15 feet than where this will be in the middle.
Good evening. My name is Tom Arcari, principal with Quisenberry, Arcari and Malik Architects, 195 Scott Swamp Road, Farmington, Connecticut. So if you look back at the original site plan, which is shown here, the house sits on the top of a berm, which is built up on the property. So the property itself has this football-shaped berm, and the house is right at the peak of the berm, and the grade falls away to both sides. And you can see in this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet to the street and a little bit more to the back. In the development of the site concept, this oval-shaped drive is where that berm is, and then the buildings are actually tucked into the outside of the berm so that they can sit lower. So we're not building our proposed structures on top of that berm. We're actually building it around the berm so they sit down. So the townhouse structures, which face the street, are two-story structures with a roof. So we'll have renderings thereafter. Our design team is here this evening, but they're two-story structures to match the house height of other structures marching along the street. And then the barn structure or apartment building is actually built into the hillside. So at the, facing the street, it's only a two-story elevation. And then as the grade falls away at the back, it's a three-story elevation. So we've used that berm structure to build our structure, to build the proposed structures around it. We're not building any of the structures on top of that elevation.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowman?
So your elevation your first floor elevation is 151 and actually South Main Street is 157. So it's 6 feet below South Main Street. If I can still read a map, which I think I can.
No, you got it.
Oh, it's a little bit higher.
60, 155 here.
I can't see it on there. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. So
First floor.
the 151 elevation is the first or lower level of this barn structure.
Exactly.
So that is 7 feet below the street.
Exactly.
The first, the mid-level of that building is 10 feet above that at 161. So that sits about 3 feet above where the cut down grade of the top of the hill is, actually maybe 2 feet. We have to keep it pretty close so we have accessible structures.
No, that's, you're building lower, not higher than South Main.
That's correct.
Yep.
Commission members, any other questions? You want to move on with the next
Sure.
presentation?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Neil Olinsky, and I'm with SLR Consulting as well. And I worked on the traffic study for this proposed development. One of the first things we do when we do a traffic study is we want to know approximately how much new traffic is any given development possibly going to generate. And the main resource we use to estimate new traffic from developments is called the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, the ITE Trip Gen book. It's a compilation of essentially traffic counts of many different land uses of different sizes. When we look at the stats from that book, a development of this size and this type, 45 units, we estimate that it would generate approximately 5 entering trips and 16 exiting trips during a single peak hour during a typical weekday morning, so your morning peak hour. During a weekday afternoon peak hour, we estimate 16 entering and 10 exiting trips. Again, that's the single peak hour. So that's the first thing we do. And the next thing we do is we look at how the new traffic from a development may or may not possibly affect traffic flow near the site. So we look at area roadway traffic volumes, we look at intersection traffic volumes, and we analyze those traffic operations with and without the new traffic from the development. So the key intersection nearby that we studied in our study is Route 10 at South Brooksville and Cook Hill Road, naturally. It's we counted it back in April. We grew that to what we estimate to be the build year when this project could possibly open in 2024 with a growth rate that was provided by Connecticut DOT. And we analyzed it again with and without the traffic. What we found is that regardless of this development, that intersection is expected to continue to operate at overall level of service C. That's with or without this development, regardless of this development, which is quite good on a scale of A to F. Level service C is quite good on a state road. We also looked at the driveways, and again, you'd expect what we found. Expect it continue to operate, or the driveways, the 2 future driveways, to operate at peak hour level of service C or better. And in fact, the Route 1 or Route 10 traffic, people just passing by the site, motorists just passing by the site, they're expected to really not be affected by this in any noticeable way. And we're expecting Route 10 traffic just passing north-south to continue to operate at level service A, right at the site. So it's all real good in terms of traffic. Another thing we looked at, key thing we looked at, is site distances, sight lines, so motorists exiting the site, can they see long enough distances to make a judgment call when to exit the site? If there's appropriate gaps in traffic. And what we found is, yes, based on speeds out there and Connecticut DOT guidelines, we will exceed the state's site distance guidelines. It's pretty much it in a nutshell. Traffic, this is going to get looked at by Connecticut DOT. It's on Route 10. As during the encroachment permit review process, they're going to look at this stuff, and it'll be reviewed by the state as well. So don't want to belabor anything, but that's pretty much it in terms of traffic, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Do you think we'll have that review by our next public hearing? I don't know how long the state takes, but
I doubt it, to be honest. We could make a submission to them. I don't know if we have yet, to be honest. But typically those come after the planning and zoning review process.
could take a year.
And DOT is very slow these days, to be quite clear. They're understaffed from what I
And we're
understand.
probably out of our jurisdiction anyways because it's Route 10, so.
Yeah.
All right, any questions for Mr. Natale?
So school buses.
Mhm.
Taking the school buses would stop out on Route 10 because they don't typically go into a development.
That would be my guess. I haven't looked into it. But that's what I recall from past projects in town. Yes. One other thing I'd like to point out is the shoulder out there is quite wide. I think it's 8 to 10 feet, which lends itself well to school buses stopping for pickup drop off on Route 10.
Yes, question.
The only concern I have there about that is I know what Rising Trail is, if you have people that are turning on a Rising Trail, a lot of people, they try and go by there using that shoulder.
Bypass, yes.
So when you go to the state, does the state have to weigh in on, location of the bus stop outside of the town since it's on a state road, or?
They don't typically weigh in on that. And quite frankly, it's relatively quick. School buses are relatively quick. I mean, my son's a second grader, not in town, but when he gets dropped off, it's they stop for 5 seconds, kids get off and they're gone. It's very, very quick. And quite frankly, if someone has to slow down on Route 10 and they can't bypass someone waiting to turn left onto the side street, it's not, DOT is not, I pretty much speak for DOT, they're not going to consider that a big enough deal to make a thing out of it.
Mr. Strollo?
In your analysis, was part of it to decide if this possibly like a one in and out, and the out being coming out across from Rising Trail, a one-way instead of two separate entrances?
We only looked at what was proposed in the site plan in terms of the two driveways both being two-way. Was that what you're getting at, or?
Yeah. I'm just saying, is coming all out across street from Rising Trail is straight to another.
It's not all
road.
coming out across from Rising Trail.
No. I'm just saying is that road is a road. So if it just came out, I don't know if the flow might be a little bit better. There was something. Oh, with the DOT, what is the car count on this road? Do you have a car count?
Let me take a quick look. It's it's a state road. Got a good amount of traffic. Yes. Page 2 of our report, we looked at state DOT every 3 years approximately monitors traffic across the
13,
state.
right?
So on a 24-hour basis, their average daily traffic is 13,800 vehicles passing generally in
So-
this section of Route 10.
Yeah, and
Peak hour traffic is obviously less.
I would say how many commercial motor vehicles are coming down there, like trucks? and
We
stuff
don't
like
know. We just know the aggregate total.
that? Okay,
Any other
That's
commission
it.
members?
thank you.
You're welcome.
No? Okay. I don't know how many more you have. One more? Okay. I want to give enough time to the public so they can have plenty of time to speak also, so.
Good evening again. Thank you. Maybe over in front. So as Ann Belcher mentioned, we brought this to the town about 6 years ago and made a presentation about the concept. And the concept was really based on a farmhouse type development and site, capturing the architecture of historic Cheshire, but not only Cheshire, New England in general, where the properties were developed over time and had a series of structures that were built up over a series of additions and renovations, so that the scales of the structures were relatively small, and the barn was placed to the back of the site. It was more of a utilitarian and functioning building. And the concept that we came up with is keeping in that style. So I'd like to introduce Rocco Petito from my office, who was our chief designer on the project, to present the concept to you.
Okay, I'm Rocco Petito, project architect for Quisenberry Carey Malik Architecture in Farmington, Connecticut at 195 Scott Swamp Road. We'll just briefly go through the buildings. The first one here is the farmhouse. It's has 2 3-bedroom flats on the flank the side, and then the rest of the buildings or the rest of the units are townhouse 2-story type units. So this is a floor plan here, the second floor, and then the third floor. Townhouses are 2 bedrooms and the flats are 3. And here's a illustration of the exterior elevations. And I know you guys can't see the finished board, but what we're proposing, take this. Is the farmhouse, the main building will be some sort of clapboard siding. And what we're showing here are 3 different types of clapboard siding, because we still have yet to go through funding and do some of our other estimating exercises. So our first choice is composite hardy panel clapboard. And second choice would be a polyash composite that is paintable. And the third choice is an insulated vinyl siding. And these choices are being made not only with the durability of the products, but also the Housing Authority and the group is trying to get this as a passive house project. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but it's a very tight way of constructing a building. So it's a very low maintenance, low energy building. The back house will be essentially the same. It's oops, I hit the wrong button. It's half of what the farmhouse is. The fenestration, the color is intended to be different. Now I know on the renderings that you see, the buildings are white. The intent is to color them with a historic color, whether it's, we had conversations with the Housing Authority of blue and yellow, and those are decisions that we'll be making once we finalize the materials. So as I was saying, the fenestration from the farmhouse to the back house will be different. So there'll be different colors, it's a similar style, but they'll look like they're 2 different buildings built at 2 different times. Now the barn is a 3-story structure. So from the back, it's 3 stories. From the roundabout in the center, it's 2 stories. This building houses 10 3-bedroom units, 16 1-bedroom units, and 4 2-bedrooms. It's designed to look as a barn. The intent initially was kind of more of a tobacco barn, hence the kind of the wood finish to it and the vertical windows to kind of mimic the venting on the tobacco barns. There's been some talk of maybe it changes to more of a traditional red type barn, but I don't think we intend to go red just yet. As you look at the two silos that flank it, those are actually the two stairwells, two entrances from the back of the building. There were some thoughts of doing a corrugated metal, as you see on if you come take a look at the finished board, you might have seen the screening. So the silo will actually have a mixture of metal panel and glass underneath with a metal screen on the outside. So when the light hits it during the day, it'll look fairly solid. When it's at night and the lights are on, should see like a soft glow of the light stairwell coming from behind it. Couple things for you. The height of the barn building from the mid grade of the slope of the building to the mid of the gable roof is 30 feet, 10 inches. And then as far as the two other buildings, the farmhouse and the back house, the grade to the mid part of the gable roofs are 20 feet. And then we have a single story community building, which will house a community room for the residents. And then also administrative functions of an office and conference room. And that again will be fenestrated similar to the farmhouse, clapboard siding. All the buildings as of now are intended to have a standing seam metal roof. And there's one of the site renderings, they're out. And you have those with you, so. Questions?
Commission members, questions? Quickly looking, we have, I guess, the first floor tenant storage. Is that just all open storage? I mean, what would?
Yeah, as of now it is. I mean, it can turn into some mechanical space if needed. A lot of several of the complexes I've worked on like this, they will have big storage rooms. They'll put cages inside and they'll have storage for not only the tenants of the apartment building, but tenants of the other two buildings as well.
One final point is, while this is intended to be 80% affordable housing complex, the trend in affordable housing is to build apartments that are homes that are no different than the homes in the community. The developers and the Housing Authority will be soliciting funds to subsidize this project, and this project will represent a significant financial investment in the south end of Main Street to the tune of between $15 and $20 million in hard construction cost. The project is going to be a very nice complement to the adjacent neighborhoods. Will be detailed the way the houses in the adjacent neighborhoods are detailed, and will reflect a quality of living that matches the neighborhoods here in your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mercado has a question.
I have a question based on that. It might be for the Housing Authority, just for me to understand. When the Housing Authority was up here, spoke that Cheshire has people here with needs for this kind of housing, whether they live in here, they're ill, the type of job they have. Is there anything that are going to pull people from Cheshire or need to be in Cheshire first before it pulls people from other towns to live here? How is there any control over that? I mean, if it's for Cheshire, how do we get people that need to be here or residents of Cheshire into this housing?
I'll leave that to Ann.
I'll do my best to answer that. When we open wait lists, it's open to everybody. We can't just have it for people in Cheshire. That's against the Fair Housing Act. We strive in diversity. In fact, we have to answer to several state and federal agencies that we are doing our best to advertise to everyone. And a lot of people, like I had said before, have family here. You know, my daughter just moved to Florida. It's really hard for her and her family to be there without grandma and grandpa to help with the two little guys. People have found that same here. You know, they've moved away and they come back, whether they are now single parents, have more kids, gotten sick, or mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, same thing. They want to be closer to them. We do have a lot of people that have been in town that are on the wait list, but there are plenty from neighboring towns.
I have a
Do
question.
they go to the top because they're already on a wait list?
No,
How is it done? Is it first come, first serve?
no, it's a lottery.
It's a lottery. Okay.
Yes, yes, that's the most fair way to do it.
Mr. Strollo.
In Rumburg, are there any 3 bedrooms in Rumburg?
Yes, there are.
There are 3 bedrooms?
Yeah.
Is that a big demand for 3 bedrooms, or is that like, I'm just trying to understand how come there's so many 3 bedrooms in this development? I would think that like affordable housing would be 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom units, because you'd be helping a single person or somebody that has 1 person, but I don't understand where the 3 bedroom comes in.
Well, it kind of ebbs and tides, you know, depending on how we get it out there, depending on what the
Is it a
economy
multiple
is.
family where it might be a 2 brothers or 2 sisters or brother and
No,
sister?
there are people that have a lot of kids. It's not always just single families. We have a 4-bedroom house. They have 6 kids, mom and dad and 6 kids.
Okay. That being said, that's where I wanted to know how that goes in, because if that's, then we have to look at for a bus coming in here to make it a lot safer. Thank you for the answer.
Mr. Natale.
Couple questions. So what is the market rent for the 20%?
The market rent, I don't know what that is. That would depend on what the DOH and CHAFA income levels are at that time. They
Um,
change every year.
So I'm talking about you said 80% affordable and
Yep.
20% at market rate. So what's the market rate?
I don't know at this time.
Does anybody?
Aaron, do you?
Good evening, Aaron Hoffman, NeighborWorks New Horizons,
Can
235.
get a little
Grand.
closer and just speak up.
Apologies. Aaron Hoffman, NeighborWorks New Horizons, 235 Grand, New Haven. We will do, as part of our funding application, we'll do a market study, which will help set the rents. I can give you comparables. In another project in Shelton, we have we don't have any 3 bedrooms, but a 2-bedroom market that's leasing right now could be 1,900. Shelton is obviously a different market than Cheshire, but they're both very attractive places to be. So we have a 2-bedroom there, 2-bedroom 1850, 2-bedroom with a den 1950.
And not going to hold you to it, but as far as the 80% that are affordable, any idea around what an affordable rent would be?
Yeah, I have some for Shelton. Those numbers will change before we lease, but they'll start, somewhere below probably 400 for the lowest level of affordability. And then for 50% AMI for a 2-bedroom is closer to 1,000. And then, and as I said, that's Shelton. That's a different market area. It's Fairfield versus the New Haven market, but that's just to give you an idea. So the rents range from, sub 400s for the 25% of AMI 1-bedroom up to 12 or 1,300 for the 60% AMI, and then market, given the way rent is, I would expect to, closer to 2,000 for that 20%. But that, that will depend on the market study, depend on and depend on what DOH their rent limits come in at for the next couple of years.
And I don't know if this is a question for the applicant or Mr. Glidden, but I know that we're going to have some public input pretty soon. Can you give just a brief summary of what the commission's obligations are under 44A, what we can and can't look at?
Yeah, I can actually speak to that.
I have a question for you too. Just is there any idea how many 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom will be affordable, or how many, will be at the market rate? And are they mixed all around the whole project, or is it one building?
No.
Is not?
So
How does that-
to answer about mixed, the units will be spread out in all the different buildings on all the different levels. And they will be indistinguishable. All units will be the same level of finish, the same flooring, the same counters, the same
I understand. Yeah, I
appliances.
understand that.
And if I can find my sheet.
And would the market rate always remain the market rate, or will it fluctuate by?
The percentage of market rate versus affordable will stay the same. A unit, as the units turn, they can change. They usually stay. When you're registering with the state, you say which
Stays.
unit numbers they are. That's
But
generally.
do you, like, it's not going to be market rate 20% all 3-bedroom? It's going to be a mixture of
Oh, no,
3-bedroom,
yeah,
2-bedroom,
it'll be
1
mixture proportional to the amount of
proportional
three
to everything.
bedrooms.
Okay.
I have it in an email, but I unfortunately do not have that breakdown.
As long as it's I don't need the breakdown. It's not.
No, it's,
The market rate are all going to be 3-bedroom. That doesn't seem right, but.
and I believe that breakdown is in the affordability plan, which was submitted.
Okay.
Uh,
Mr. Mercado.
This is income restricted. With energy rates, electrical almost doubling in the next month or so, the people on the income restricted, do they get any benefit or reduction in cost of electric? Because
There are programs for reduction in energy payments through utilities, and we, NeighborWorks, help connect our residents to those. When you're calculating the maximum rent that you can charge someone in the affordable units, you take their income, 30% of that income, and then you have to decrease that by a utility allowance. That's based on the unit size and the types of utilities that they're paying. So, electric stove, electric heat pump, that's published every year or every couple of years by the state. And so that their rent is decreased by that. And I fully expect, given what we're all experiencing, that will change for the next year to reflect that.
good, thank you.
Thank you.
Like,
I'm not sure who this question is for, Mike. Maybe you can provide some guidance. I noticed that in the affordability plan, it says that the developer intends that all units will be rentals. However, the plan is drafted to accommodate both rentals and homeownership. Are we, go ahead.
They're just following the model that's actually in our regs, which is
Okay.
referred to 830G of the general state statutes. So this is just a boilerplate, the affordability plan. So
Okay.
that
So
could,
there's no distinction we need to be concerned about or
that
consider?
can be deleted from the plan,
Okay,
just to say that it's for rental.
great. Thank you.
And then maybe just quick to answer Commissioner Talley's question. So if you go to section 44A, 5(1)A and B, they just state that if the commission is going to deny a zone change pursuant to this section of the zoning regulations, there are only two instances which need to be confirmed in the records. One, denial of the petition is required to protect substantial public interest in health, safety, or other matters the commission can legally consider. Such substantial interests need to clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and such substantial interests cannot be otherwise protected by reasonable change to the petition. The other is the petition would locate affordable housing in an area which is zoned for industrial use and which does not permit residential uses, or the petition does not propose an affordable housing development as defined by section 44A2 of these regulations, or the petitioner does not meet the qualifying standards of section 44A3. So that really just spells it out from you, the sense of looking at it from the zone change perspective. If you go to the qualifying standards in 44A31, I'm just going to go through the 5 standards for you, just so that to show. One, that the tract of land is located within one of the more of the following zones: R20, R20A, R40, R80, SARDD, C1, C2, or C3. So this is a property located in R20 zone, so it qualifies, it meets that standard. 2, access over the land in a zone not listed above must provide that the tract meets a minimum of 50-foot frontage requirements of section 44A 3.1. The subject property has 399.8 feet of frontage along South Route 10, South Main Street, so it meets that standard. The tract shall have frontage on one or more of the following state or town roads. Route 10 is one of them that's identified. As I said earlier, we have just 399.8 feet of linear frontage along Route 10. The site is currently served by public water or by state, municipal approved private sanitary sewers or by public sewers. The applicant explained to you that it will be served by public water and they're connecting to public sewer. So once again, another standard it meets. Last is the area is not less than 5 acres, no more than 25. The subject property is 5.43 acres. So it meets the qualifying standards. So go back to those reasons for the denial of a zone change. You know, one of them is meeting all the qualifying standards. So it meets the qualifying standards. And it's an area that allows, it's not zoned for industrial use, meaning it permitted residential uses. So there's one thing that the commission did in granting, and you said zone changes, it requires the commission to make the following factors into the record. One is consistency of the rezoning, the town plan of conservation and development. And 2 is the supply of affordable housing within the town and central Naugatuck Valley planning region. That's in your regs. I think that the executive director from the Housing Authority kind of discussed with you the need for affordable housing based on the waiting list that she described at her 2 facilities. The one thing that the commission we could discuss later maybe is the plan of conservation development and how this relates. I provided some excerpts from the POCD in my staff report to you. If you want, I can explain those. Otherwise, we can discuss that later.
Well, you're good with that?
Okay.
I think we're good with that, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so if you guys do you have any more to bring to us?
That would conclude our formal presentation, Mr. Chairman. Obviously,
And you'll be staying to listen to, we might have
we'll be
comments and
staying
questions.
and,
Yeah,
yes,
Okay.
and we reserve our right, obviously, to
absolutely.
respond.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And we'll probably have questions that come in and then you'll take the questions at the end, unless you feel you have to jump up and answer one of the questions, but while it's on topic. So with that, I will go to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak or ask questions, you have to do what these guys are doing. You have to come up to the microphone. We need your name and address for the record, and then the floor is yours. I also would like, if you hear comments that have already been made, please don't repeat the same comments once we hear it once. I don't want to hear the same issues back and forth. There's probably a lot of people that are going to speak, and we do have other stuff that we have to do. So not that I will not deny anyone the right to speak. If you could keep it to all new comments, that would be great.
Frank Pepe, 11 Mulberry Court. First, thank you for serving on the commission. I understand that you give up your time, and I do appreciate that. I think the challenge this evening that I have is not affordable housing. I support affordable housing. My challenge is that of trust. As the history of the project was described, I sat with Lou and Peter. Peter was mentioned at the beginning. They sat at my kitchen table. We discussed the project. We discussed a variety of things. So much has changed since 2019. For example, there was talk of a vernal pool on the property. I understand that in 2019, the inland wetlands determined that the soil didn't meet vernal pool wetland criteria. Although the Malone and McBroom study did describe it as the conditions around similar to a vernal pool. The new grading that is occurring on the property actually increases the height so that if it was a vernal pool, it would no longer be a vernal pool. The two barns originally designed are now one. The fruit trees that lined the property and back, and there was an area for crops because this was a farm stand idea where crops would be harvested and sold on Whitney Avenue as part of the concept. Gone. I heard tonight that the finishes will be comparable to the surrounding area. I sat in multiple meetings in which I was told that the finishes will be changed and are changed because inflation, because the cost of construction has increased, and the way to combat that is to change the finishes. So I struggle with that trust that what we were told was going to happen is actually going to happen. And now we're faced with something different. So I struggle with what I'm told tonight, and is that actually going to happen? There were some very good questions in terms of sightline and topography and the height, the back building. Mr. Bowman, I think you had asked and had stated that that back building is actually lower grade than Route 10. The challenge is that back building, the one gigantic building now that was two aesthetically pleasing barns, although it's sitting 7 feet lower from Route 10, it's actually about 30 feet behind the current structure. So it's 30 feet closer to the abutters. There were questions about the distance from the parking lot and the distance. So now that we have a parking lot, because that's another change, there wasn't a parking lot. The parking was under the two buildings. Now we have a parking lot. The parking lot then pushed the water retention area back further towards the abutters. To give you an idea, there's a footbridge around the water retention area that is approximately 70 feet. To give you an idea, this room from that wall to the back wall is 70 feet. That's a pretty short distance that now will be cleared out, that originally was promised that there would be this buffer in order to help reduce the noise, the light pollution. That's gone. The 90-foot buffer that is now reduced to about 50 feet. So trust is a struggle because what was originally fully supported, understood, agreed to, backed by the neighborhoods in the surrounding area is not what's being presented tonight. A grand concern of mine is the protected wetlands that sit in my backyard. And when I looked and reviewed the plans, I believe the standing water that you'll see noted in the plans is misrepresented. I think it's well undersold. I have pictures I can demonstrate to you through multiple accounts. The standing water that waxes and wanes based on the season is much greater than what's represented in your drawings. And if that's the case, I struggle with the water retention area that has a spillway that literally points towards my property. And I heard tonight is rated for a 100-year flood. Back in 2019, we were talking about a 500-year flood event. All of these inconsistencies really The only thing I could ask of you this evening is to table the special permit application vote until Inland Wetland does a full review, because I do not believe there was a full review. And then we proceed maybe with all the other questions that have to be answered as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Did this go to wetlands? Was there?
A request for determination was filed with the Wetlands Commission, similar to the request for determination that was filed in 2019.
Okay, and did they determine that there was
They-
no?
They, actually, the applicant will be in front of them at their next meeting.
And we can't act until after wetlands acts anyway, so that
Correct.
answers.
Good evening, Eva Canelli, 7 Mulberry Court. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate all that you do in this committee, on this commission. I'll try not to reiterate what Frank said, because I know we want probably more people speaking, but basically, Frank really hit all the high notes, and I just want to, just say a couple of things. First of all, we had some serious concerns, as Frank said. I think the whole, our whole area was, all into the project. Back in our original presentation, I have a huge PowerPoint of what it looked like. And this is nothing like the original plan. So we know that there's, I have, all of the, all of the rules and regulations for planning and zoning. And we understand that, obviously an affordable housing application cannot be denied, but what needs to be considered is really the health and safety and the massive size of the proposed building. So the health and safety concerns that we have are, as Frank said, and I won't reiterate, it's the impact of the vernal pool and the impact on the drainage and the runoff into the neighbors' properties. We know that the vernal pool is there, and we are just wondering if the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection was consulted on this. And I think it's our understanding that the impact of the vernal pool and its development in close proximity, we know that they said that that was filled in. And again, I'm not sure this is the information that I received from people working on the project. There's also the vernal pool that is adjacent to the other piece of property. And supposedly it's supposed to have certain setbacks. My understanding it was 750 feet, so I'm not exactly sure where that is. So all that to say that we would just respectfully request that this application also be reviewed by the DEEP. And we just want to go on record for saying that because, we would just feel more comfortable if DEEP gave their blessing on it. The other concern is, basically the site that you see right now, it's underdeveloped. It's undeveloped. There's a small house with a small driveway. So, and I know my area is education. It is, and I respect all your folks in your area. So I don't know the drainage and the runoff. It's hard to envision, a project like this, what the implications will be for the drainage and the runoff when what we have now is a small house. We know even with the infiltration of the drainage that there still will be runoff, and we're very concerned about flooding on the property. And the second point I wanted to make is in section 40.4, which is about the size and intensity of the proposed use. We don't feel that this application is now in compliance with the special permit regulation. I think the original one may have been, but the rear building that they're describing is a very, very large structure. And it's very inconsistent with the adjacent single-family homes that we have in our neighborhood. In section 44.8.3, it says the building can be 240 feet. This is 180 feet long, but there's no relief in articulation to appear residential at all in nature. It's supposed to represent a barn. We hope that the intent is that it does look like a barn. The original one did. This one does not. It's 3 stories high. The entire back is a wall of windows. And again, I'm not the expert in this, but I know what I was looking at. In addition, there's 46-car parking lot behind that building. There is no buffer. There's no fence. There's no plantings. There's no berm along the parking lot. Originally, we were promised many things. We do not see that in this plan. It's all like, oh, it's what's there. You understand that more than I do. So we do not feel that this clearly fits in with the landscape of the neighborhood. We think the building along Route 10, the 2 buildings they have there, those look pretty much like the landscape, but the massive building in the rear does not. The original plan was much more consistent, both in scale and magnitude with our area. This large structure really does not fit into what I think the neighborhood looks like, and that is clearly stated in section 40.1. So in closing, I would just, I want to thank you. But we feel that the previous plan was a lot more respectful to the adjacent residential neighborhood, and this plan is not. And hopefully, we'll make every effort to, help us if this plan goes through to make it look more like it would fit in with our surrounding. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? You guys could, if you want to form a line back here, quicker in between each speaker, that would be helpful.
Diane Goldstein, 9 Mulberry Court. I have 2 very quick comments. First of all, thank you all for your time, and thank you to my neighbors. I appreciate their comments. The rendering of Jack's Farm, where you see all the greenery, that's abuts our property. That must have been done in the summer. I challenge you to all come to my house now. All those leaves are down. We see everything in the backyard. There is no trees, no buffer. And then the other comment I have is we're original owners. So we've lived on Mulberry Court for 35 plus years. There were 9 houses. Right now there are 10. That year that we moved in, there were 13 children on our bus stop. So 45 houses, units, I can't even imagine how many children are going to be on Route 10 getting on that bus. It's not going to be fast. It's going to take some time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Piscatelli, 20 South One Circle. Thank you again for your time on the commission. I'm not going to reiterate what Frank said. However, one thing, as everybody heard, it is a drastic change going from 30 to 45 units. I just was curious. I think we had a petition going around, and I didn't hear any mention of that. Was that mentioned
Was there
anywhere?
any petition turned into the planning?
No, there's not a
That-
petition.
If you did have something, that would be something that would go to the planning office if you had to get it in.
Okay.
Or wanted
All
to
right.
get it in.
Okay, thank you. I know you're looking into the light pollution and the sound pollution. I don't know if there's any way to shift the property towards the front. I mean, if you have, I think they mentioned 390 feet to the front of Route 10 or somewhere around there. I don't know if that's possible to shift it so that there's more of a buffer in the back. I mean, that probably would help, maybe with increasing some plantings, to just hide and protect some of the sound from coming in and the light pollution. That may be beneficial. Also, I heard electric heat. Who puts in electric heat these days? And how is that affordable? I mean, I actually work for the power company, and I know for a fact electric heat, nobody puts electric heat in. Is there any other, are we trying to reduce our carbon footprint or increase it? I mean, there was talk about putting solar in here and more of a farm look, but I don't know what happened to that design. That would have offset some of the electric heat, but that, just clearly went away. Maybe they could look into something like heat pumps, something more affordable, more energy efficient. It just seems absurd. I would never rent something that's, electric heat. That's something from back in the 1980s. And then finally, the traffic, I'm sure you all know, going Route 10 at 5, 6 o'clock, right in that area, it's just backed up completely. So this is certainly not going to help. And maybe the town wants to consider a bus stop, because I see people sitting on the side of the Route 10 right in the corner, mostly from Elam Park. They walk up and they wait on the bus. There's a little bench chained to a sign. I mean, maybe there's something you could do to, add some bus stops along that area, because there's just nothing. You're just going to have people sitting in the street, just migrating around waiting for a bus, which is ridiculous. I mean, there's got to be a safety concern stemming from that, right? I mean, I would think so.
What kind of trees are buffered between this and where you live?
Frank would probably know better than I.
Are they pines or?
There's a variety of scrub pine right now on the back border. The plan calls for, if you took a look at my property in the corner, 4 trees for additional planting. When the vet had to go through what the vet went through and had to put in, they agreed to put in pine trees, 4 trees. The manager of the vet realized the impact. She had 10 trees put in. You stand in my back, you could still, the lights just filter through. I never said anything else because it was very nice. She went from 4 trees to 10 trees, but the plans call right now for 4 trees to be planted in the corner on that property line.
I have a question. I just want a clarification. You guys did say heat pumps, correct?
Okay.
No, just.
Thought I heard electric heat.
Heat pumps, yeah, you know what?
They were going to answer the questions at the end too, Matt.
Apologies. Heat pumps, yes, they're electrically powered heat pumps, so
Okay.
very efficient.
Okay. My mistake. Apologize.
yeah, well,
I thought I heard electric heat.
The reason I'm, I want to know too, because I do know that the next generation of heat pump
That's right.
is
Those are
gonna be
very
more
good.
efficient
Yes,
than
absolutely.
anything that's on the market now.
Absolutely.
Propane, natural, anything. So I-
100% agree.
I hold an S1 license
Yep.
in the state, so I got a
100%.
half a clue about that.
100% agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Nora Caligiuri. I'm at 10 Mulberry Court, right next to Frank Pepe. Couple of questions, and maybe this can be answered. How's this going to impact the school, Norton School? I know we're building a new school, but if you have 45 apartments coming in, what is the impact on children going to be? And my next question is, if you reside in one of these affordable houses, which we're trying to make it a better, and I agree with affordable housing, don't get me wrong. It's a great concept, although I worked my butt off my entire life to live where I live, but that's besides the point. Do these people have to work in Cheshire? Anybody know?
Well, that would be an answer from them, but they did say no. But I mean, all your questions comes to us, but they are the ones that are going to answer it.
So do they have, because I would think that if you were able to take advantage of living in Cheshire at an affordable rate, then you should be then employed in Cheshire.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, however, when I look at it, I think that question was asked, and I think it's whatever their policies are. They can answer the question better than I can, but I would tend to agree with you too. But that's not in our hands.
Okay. And once again, the light pollution, it like Diane said, when the trees are empty as they are now, the vet is bad enough. I mean, we went through hell with the vet trying to decrease the light. And now you're talking these huge buildings. And there are residential homes, but right up against it. And it's not acceptable. I'm sorry. It's just not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, and I want to thank everyone for putting your time in. I appreciate that.
Sir, can you the microphone, just pull it down a little bit towards you? We could pick you up a little bit better. Thank you.
I don't have my usual voice. I got old. But forgive me. I live with my daughter and son-in-law at 1561 South Main Street, which is directly across the street from the animal hospital. And we own the corner, which is Rising Trail, and up several hundred feet along that road, Rising Trail. We have about almost 2 acres of property. The house is a ranch-style home, about 2,600 square feet. And we're trying to bring it back to its original, condition. It has been run down badly. Now, my bedroom faces Route 10. And I get up at night to use the bathroom several times. You know what I'm talking about. So I see this traffic, especially tractor trailers going by all hours of the day and night. I happen to take a walk down the driveway, which is a few hundred feet long, and I noticed a car trying to come out of Rising Trail. He must have been there for several minutes because the traffic was almost bumper to bumper. I'm going north and south. And when my daughter started her business, Allison, over 30 years ago on Cornwall, it's called the, I'm getting off the trail here. But the point is, she's been here for over 30 years in business. She has a pet grooming business called Beauty and the Beast. And she opened her house to my wife and I because we're old and getting worse. The thing, I don't want to take too much more time, but I did write down a few notes. I did a lot of things in my life. And I know something that when she first started her business, I was at City Hall many times getting approval. And the first selectman then, I forgot his name, I asked him, when are they going to widen Route 10? Well, I forgot now, it's a state road. Has nothing to do with Cheshire. So he said, it's never going to be widened. He was emphatic. And I believe him. So now it's a 2-lane road with tractor trailers. I mean, no one observes the speed limit anymore. And there's a lot of traffic. And we don't need more traffic on that road right now. We can use the road widened, or we don't need this development right now. And it takes a long time to get out of our driveway sometimes. And I think the septic system is a negative. There should be probably was a traffic study. There should be a limit of how many vehicles can be on that road. And you have to look at that. And I'm sure you will. So I have a lot more here, but I don't want to take any more time on it. I'll thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Oh, I didn't give you my name. My name is Armand, A-R-M-A-N-D, Alloy, A-L-O-I. And I love living in Cheshire. It's a beautiful town, and I'm going to try, like you guys, to keep it beautiful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? And this is not your only opportunity. The public hearing will be held open till our next meeting, so.
I know we all want to go home soon, so I will keep it brief. My name is Courtney Barber Devine. I live at 6 Mulberry Court. I thank my neighbors for articulating our concerns. I just want to close with what I've been thinking as I've been sitting here. I've been looking around the room at these gorgeous pictures, and this is all what we think of Cheshire. This is what we want to be Cheshire. And then I look at this rendering, and it's nothing like how we want our town represented, what we have in our town hall. This picture, while necessary in Cheshire, is just too much for our neighborhood. The barn, having something 3 stories high in your backyard, is not something any of us would want. And I know the town council will consider those feelings when making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Louis Nero, 55 Jesse Court, Cheshire. I am the chairman of the Cheshire Housing Authority. First, I'd like to thank you for give me the opportunity to come before the P&Z to present the latest proposal for the affordable housing in Cheshire. The Cheshire Housing Authority Board, which consists of 4 appointed members from the Town Council and one member that is elected by the tenants that live in the units, feels that this project would benefit Cheshire in multiple ways. It will make affordable housing available to people who are at the income level where purchasing a home or renting in Cheshire is beyond their means. It is our goal that this project, upon completion, will be something of which the town of Cheshire can be proud. Once again, I thank you for your time and hope that you will see this project for the benefits that it offers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, given that the hearing won't be closed tonight, we think it would make sense, and with your permission, to reserve our responses until the next meeting. And we'll also take into account everything that's said, and if there are modifications that we can
And-
make to address some of the comments, we'll certainly do that, and we'll report back next time.
Some of the
about that.
bigger ones I heard were the lights, from the cars, some kind of berm fence
Right.
maybe.
I think that's an easy one.
We have no lighting plan yet. That would be
Right.
something with full cutoff lighting.
Right.
If we could see something that at the next meeting. Commission members, anyone else have? Mr. Natale?
Yeah, I'm gonna just echo what the chairman said, because special permit, I'd like to know what siding you're gonna use. You said that it may be red for the barn, may not be red for the barn. What is it? A special permit, so I'd like to know. The lighting in the silos, I know that you're talking about that mesh where at night it would be lit up. We're talking about light pollution and trying to avoid light pollution. I'm not sure that's the best choice, because again, you'd be lighting up that area. And if the folks that are here say you can already see that property through the trees, probably not the best use of material to face their properties. Mr. Kurtz brought up again that buffer at the rear of the property. Again, special permit, I would really, really like to see you address that. I don't want to hear that, headlights are going into these people's houses. I do remember when Cheshire Vet was here, and I know they made accommodations, and, we were pretty adamant on that when we made that decision, and it doesn't sound like that went far enough. So I'd really like to see you address that too.
Right. Understood.
Any other concerns that we would like to give him tonight, sir?
Well, yes, what we've heard a lot about it tonight, I think, is about lighting, certainly. I mean, drainage, I don't know that we've heard a lot about drainage yet, and runoff, and that we talked about a vernal pond and such. And then we've heard a lot about the size of the barn. I don't know what if anything can be done about that, but a lot of folks have talked about that being a very big building and that affecting their view of the project, and suggesting that that was different than what was proposed when there were originally conversations about this with the neighbors, I guess. So I guess we'd like to hear more about that. That seems like a major issue, and probably something that's central to your plan, the large building, but I think we'd like to hear more
We will
about that.
address that. We'll also address the drainage, although just for everyone's benefit, I'm very confident that our engineer will explain that there's, again, for the benefit of the neighbors, that the drainage goes to Route 10 and it goes to the south. It's not going to go to the west to the neighbors. And again, I'm not the engineer, but I have discussed it with our engineer, and I'm very confident about that.
Mr. Bone?
For Mr. Glidden, has our staff engineer reviewed the
Yeah.
plan?
Yes, and he has comments that are outstanding. They're working with the town engineer on his comments.
Okay, all right. I also have a concern about lighting. And it would be great if coming in from Route 10 on the northern side, it would be a one-way going in that way. So there would be no lights exiting at night, shining across the street into neighbors' yards, where your exit onto Route 10 on the south they would go directly up, what is it, Rising Trail? And I would also like to see at your entrance or exit, on the south entrance or exit, that there be a turning lane so people won't stack turning left. They can go left or go, be two lanes. So the right can always go right and not wait behind someone who's trying to make a left turn onto Route 10. I think that would help. you know, you've got a plan here. I don't know if you could absolutely flop and put the barn in the front closer to Route 10, so that's the larger building, and put the smaller building in the rear. I don't know what that does to your plan. And also, I'd like Mr. Glidden to give us a report on what our rights are as a planning and zoning commission to be in compliance with the state regulation for affordable housing, what our parameters are, where, you know, how much latitude do we actually have?
So, well, I mean, I can quick, under Connecticut General State Statute 830G, every community is required to have 10% of their housing stock be considered affordable, as defined by statute. We're at 3.8%. That's as of last year's Department of Housing Affordable Appeals list. So, go ahead, Matt. Oh. So we're in a stage where in order to achieve that goal, we need to add more affordable housing units. And what I think the executive director of the Housing Authority stressed was the diversity of what affordable housing will serve, because it's all about numbers. It's not about people. It's about do you make the numbers so that you're not using more than 30% of your yearly income to housing costs. So that includes utilities. And as Aaron Hoffman stated earlier, there's a formula that the state puts out, whether it's for determinations on income levels, which actually is the Department of Housing issues that, and then also the utility allowances that are associated with it. What is deemed affordable from a 830G perspective on the deed restrictions is a formula. It's actually in the affordable housing plan, how it's tooled out. But I mean, the short answer is we need to add more to diversify our housing stock. This project will add affordable housing units to the community, which is consistent with some of the goals and objectives of the Plan of Conservation Development in 2016.
I'm sorry, I just want to tack on to what Mr. Bowman was saying. So part of this is a special permit still.
Correct.
So if there are requirements that we want to see, whether it's lighting, whether it's, anything that we've just mentioned, since it's a special permit, can we still include those?
Yeah,
state
so
statute?
so yes, because it's remember this application could have came in two forms. One is section 44A, where it's in your regulations, which you have control. Or the applicant could have submitted an 830G appeal, meaning they come in, they build what they want, there are no standards, and it comes down to, as I said it earlier, is it safe traffic perspective? You have an engineer to say you could safely get in and out of the development. 2, can the toilets flush? And 3, is there something that is, in order for it to be denied, something that is so environmentally sensitive that the adverse impacts of the development would outweigh the need for affordable housing in a community?
But the way that it was submitted, though,
They came under your regs, so
it came under our
therefore,
regs, so it's special permit.
You have
So
some
if we want to
discretion.
look out for the neighbors with light pollution or anything else,
Correct.
that's totally under our
and
control.
also remember in section 44A, as I said earlier about the zone change, if they can make accommodations to the plan in order to balance the needs or balance the concerns, they're following, they're staying in compliance with the regs. So it sounds like there's some tweaks that could be made to the application that may be able to balance sort of the concerns that the neighbors have or the public has presented tonight.
One more quick question with that. Because they're coming in under our regulations, there was a comment made something about the siding might change depending on how much money they have or funding they have. Can they still do that under our, I mean, I understand they can do it under 8-30G. They can do almost anything under that.
Yep.
But they're in front of us with using our regulations, which we are very happy with, by the way. We wanted people to use our regulations. But can they get approval for something where they say they're going to do it one way and then change? Because they don't have the funding? I mean, is that?
We are specific in our approvals. So they're going to have to, for the next meeting, come up with what this material will be. And that will be approved by this commission.
And no changes.
No-
If they
Well,
say
if
a
they-
standing seam roof, I mean, it's going to
If
have
they
to be
want to
a-
change it, they'd
a
have to
roof.
come back to modify the special permit.
Okay.
because that would be a substantial change. So you have control on that.
Okay, Mr. Picotto, I'm sorry.
A couple things. One, safety. That big barn in the back where you're hiding the parking spots between the barn and the neighbors. Look at bringing the parking spots in front. The barn, you walk out the back door of the barn. That brings you out to the little field. You can walk around back there. It's going to hide all those lights from the car. It's also going to be safer for the people, right? That's going to be in that middle area, the yard. So that could be lit up a little bit more. You're blocking the light off the neighbors, and it's very safe for the people than being behind a building and being hidden where someone can come out and jump out at them, right? And lighting is important. You got to do something about that lighting, and that might be one way is just flop those parking spots around. Thank you.
I can,
Mr. Lynn, just one question. This is a little bit different than the last couple we've had, isn't it? It seems the last couple affordable housing applications we had, how affordable housing was defined in terms of 80% of average mean income. Some of these units will be for persons with 60% as a maximum, correct? So
Correct.
This project actually opens up housing to people of even lower income levels than the last ones we've looked at, I think. Am I correct in that understanding?
You're correct. And also the percentage of market rate versus affordable, this is different than the others. The others were primarily a market rate development. This is primarily affordable housing.
Right, very different.
So, yes.
it may make sense, notwithstanding what I said about reserving till the next time to address a few of those. And if I could ask one question so that we can be better prepared next, at the next meeting. Now, I want to make sure I understand the suggestion about the one-way in and the one-way out. Were you asking that the one-way out would be the southern exit that faces Rising Trail, or the other way around? I got it.
No, that's, yes. Yes, no, no, yes. Yet
So-
the southern access, I would like to see exiting. And it doesn't mean it can't also be an entrance. It doesn't have to be one way, but I do think coming in on the north side, people exiting the building at night or exiting the project at night are going to shine lights into the people across the street's home. I don't know if that's possible. These are just, I'm just making comments. I'm not trying to redesign this project, believe me. But I'm trying to take into consideration some of the comments that were made tonight and some of the concerns that I've heard other commissioners have about the access and egress. Lighting, I'm sure you can address that fairly easily with with your lighting plan when you submit it for the next meeting. Yeah, that's.
I can assure you that there won't be any light migration. That's standard practice. And when we submit our isometric plans, I think you'll see that. I'm very, very confident about that. I do want to say, with respect to the comment about the turning lane, that is within the jurisdiction of DOT, it being a state highway. So,
No, I think he meant on your property.
oh, on our property.
Yes.
I'm glad I clarified that. You mean on the driveway?
Yes, so if you're taking a left on the southern side, you want to have room for a shoulder that if someone was taking a right to head north on Route 10.
Right.
Correct, without getting it back up
And
on
you
your
have
own
the
property.
space there.
I'm sorry, could you explain that one again?
Your exit will be wider.
And
So coming out the south entrance, have a lane that turns left going south on Route 10, and also have a lane that someone could take a right and not have to wait for the person turning left.
Got it.
Because it seems like the one turning left and headed south would have a lot more of a backup.
So I know Mr. Akari would like to get a head start on addressing some of the comments about the fairly significant reorientation of the buildings, and I'll ask him to do that in a minute. But since the question of 30G was brought up, I think it's only fair that I state our position on that. So we are applying under 44A, and we fully intend to satisfy 44A and to do everything it takes to do so. regardless of whether or not this is an application under 30G. I want to make that very clear. That's why we've presented the application.
And we thank you for that.
The way it is. But I do have to state this one thing, that 8-30G defines an affordable housing application as an application where two things are satisfied. Number one, you submit an affordability plan that conforms with 30G. And the way 44A is written, you basically incorporate everything in 30G with respect to the affordability plan. So in order for us to comply with 44A, we have to submit an affordability plan that conforms to 8-30G. So the second thing that's in the definition in 30G of an affordable application under 30G is if, in addition to an affordability plan, is if 30% or more of the units are affordable as defined in the statute. And again, in order to comply with your regulations, we have to submit an application. The definition of affordable is the same, but we only have to have 20% affordable. But in this case, we have 80% affordable, way more than the 30. So we couldn't make this not a 30G application if we wanted to. So I just want to be clear about that. It may sound like a legalistic nuance, but we're applying under 44A. We're so confident that and 44A, by the way, incorporates a lot of the concepts of 30G. I mean, it basically says that unless there's a public safety or environmental concern that's so significant that it outweighs the need for affordable housing, that the application should be approved, which is the exact same standard in 30G anyway. So I just want to make it clear, we're not relying on 30G. We don't have to, but it is a 30G application. And again, we have no choice in the matter. So, Mr. Akari?
One more question. On the barn, I don't know what the previous plan was or looked like, what the town folks were speaking of, but keep that in mind. When you had mentioned that maybe you can change this, not have the tall windows, the red, make it more suitable to what it was before or matching that.
I think that's
would
what
be good.
Mr. Akari wants to address.
Thank you.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me back again, Tom Arcari. We heard a lot of great comments this evening, but none affected me more than Mr. Deppie. Is it Frank Deppie?
Happy.
Pepe, I'm sorry for the mispronunciation. In talking about trust, we did present a concept 5 years ago, and that concept was slightly different than what we had today. That's correct. The rear barn was actually a little bit bigger because it was spread out into two pieces. It was always 3 stories tall, and we did have parking under the structure originally. But in order to make these developments work over time, there's lots of factors that change the direction of the development. Originally, we had one entrance to the development on the south side of the property. It was two-way traffic, one way in, one way out, and you would circle under the building and then go back on the south side, go back out on the south side. But in our development of the concept, we had significant discussions with the public safety teams here in Cheshire, particularly the fire department and the police department. And the fire department had very stringent requirements about how they would be able to respond to public safety issues, emergency responses, fire responses. They did not want the vehicles under the building. They did not want access to the back of the buildings or fire safety access to have to go through or under the buildings. They insisted that the traffic be routed to the back of the buildings so that public safety vehicles could get behind the buildings and respond to any particular issues. So they also wanted us to have a second egress and ingress from the site on the north side of the property. So Mr. Pepe mentioned, originally there wasn't an ingress or egress on that site, but the fire department and the police department wanted that there. So when we had two buildings, and those two buildings stretched out much further. Originally, the two buildings had a total footprint of over 200 feet wide. There was a gap in between them, but they were much bigger. We had to condense it so that we could get access behind the buildings and out the north side of the site. So we consolidated it to one building, and then we added units under what would be the east side of the building where there were cars. We couldn't put units under the west side of the building because it's buried into the hill, but then move the parking and the access to the rear of the site. So that's why the back of the site changed the way it is. The footprint of the building is actually smaller, but it's brought together. In response to that, architecturally, we could try and change the fenestration of the building so it looks a little bit more like two structures, or perhaps like their comments said, which were good comments, perhaps the windows can change to make the appearance be different and change the scale of the buildings. But there were changes from our original concept, but they were made for very good reasons, as dictated to the safety and well-being of any potential residents that are there on the site. I thought the comments about the buffers were very good. We didn't provide a lot of information in our presentation about the buffers tonight, and we'll come back with better information. But buffers are a relatively low developmental cost to a project, and to be sensitive to our neighbors, certainly we can upgrade those buffers. We could use a retaining wall and stone wall with a fence on top of it. We could use a fence with plantings, and certainly we can add coniferous trees to the buffer line so that long-term you're not relying on just the deciduous trees to provide a buffer. I think that could be an overall improvement on both sides and makes a ton of sense. There's other comments about energy efficiency and electric heat. I think those were addressed. As regarding wetlands, no wetlands, that's really something the Wetlands Commission wants to talk about. But I will point out, independent soil scientists have walked the site and made scientific determinations about what's on the property that we're proposing. We did not do investigations on the neighbor's property. So I think trust is an important issue, and I think that's one of the reasons why the town has put this process in place, is so that you're not receiving a hard 8-30G application, so that we're working with comments from the community to come up with a final solution. And I think by taking into consideration a lot of the hard comments that we heard tonight, we can come back with some really good solutions to those particular issues. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this public hearing will be held open till, I don't know the date.
December 12th.
December 12th. So thank you all. We do have other stuff to go to tonight, so as you exit, if you keep the conversations maybe down the stairs, because it gets a little loud in here when you're speaking out there. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I'm moving on. Number 5, application of BAFAM Investments LLC.
Application for modifications of a previously approved special permit on behalf of BFAM Investments LLC. Owner David Onofrio, agent. Application is for the changed to previously approved plans associated with construction of single-family residence located at the property 129 Mountain Brook Circle, Assessor's Map 89, Lot 32, in the R80 zone. Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. My name is Attorney Scott Jackson. My law firm is in New Haven. I believe at our last meeting, the two outstanding issues, you folks wanted to see an updated site plan, which was forwarded to Mr. Glidden, and I believe was forwarded to the rest of the commission. And then there was questions about a letter from the gas company in order to make sure any safety concerns were no longer concerns. Did you all have an opportunity to see both of those documents?
Yes, they're both in our packets, yes.
Okay. Did you have any outstanding questions about any of those? We do have our engineer with us tonight.
Commission, any questions? I guess none.
Okay. Can we get that modification approved tonight?
I don't know. It's still a public hearing. Let's see if there's anyone from the public that wants to speak on it, and we can make our determination at that point. So, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this application? Okay. No, they need to, you get, come up to the microphone, need your name and address for the record, please.
Holly Hart, 135 Mountain Brook Drive. Do we, I don't know, I guess I'm unprepared. I wasn't exactly sure. Can we state here what are the modifications that are being asked to be corrected or accepted?
The modifications for,
Yes, Holly, I had a concern about the gas line and that it maintained its integrity, during and after the construction process and after the transfer. And that was addressed by the pipeline company.
Oh, okay.
and with the plot plan, it was also, his engineer stated that with the new plot plan and construction of the area, that there will be no more increase in runoff to any of the neighbors' properties. That's what we asked for in this new, and there was other things too, like the driveway.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll assist. So there's modifications to the access way. They widened the driveway, eliminated what was supposed to be crushed stone shoulder that was on the north side, or
Yep.
would be, if you're standing at the cul-de-sac on the right side. Now that's been paved, there's a curb there. The other is as the chairman pointed out, the modification that we're done to the swale. The applicant's engineer has provided a certification to the commission, I'm sorry, that the work is done in accordance with his plans and there'll be no downstream impacts from the work. The last one had to do with the extent of grading, and that's where Mr. Bowman pointed out that the grading didn't, was concerned whether it had an impact on the gas line. So they've forwarded their as-built to the gas company, which they're okay with. So.
Okay. Well, the gas line and all that, I have no issues with. The driveway looks great. I guess our only concern was we've had that emergency approval to clean out the intermittent waterway. And so now we have this enormous gully that was kind of dug out, and there's not been any water that's come down. So I have no idea if it's because lack of water or anything that else that has happened up in the forest. I have no idea. So we just kind of wanted that on record.
Okay. The massive gully that was put in.
Well, they just dug out because we had all the rocks and debris in it. So we had a company come in and just kind of dig it out in case, with snowfall and everything else, just to make sure that we weren't going to have anything come up over it again if more debris would come down. But we've been kind of monitoring it just to kind of see how it's going to go. And again, just for the record, there's been no water that's come down it at all.
Okay, and that's exactly
Yeah,
what his
but-
engineer has stated, and
Yep.
and going forward, that that the changes that have occurred since the violation, then that you should be protected from all the runoff that comes from this property,
That's
stated by the
swell.
engineer.
That's going through that new swell.
What do you mean?
No, I'm just saying well, right now I'm not worried about being protected because there's no water coming down. Even when it rains, we've yet to see water. We've gone up in the woods. Anyway, again, just kind of for the record, that's all.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Rick Close, 835 Moss Lane, Cheshire, Connecticut. I built the house, Hart's house, back in 98, and I went through this commission and wetlands, and they put us through the ropes. We had to go a few times, move the house forward, get away from the intermittent water course. And this council and this committee and the building department are the last line of defense to protect the homeowners in the area. And so I've read the minutes from Mr. Mealy that he's submitted to Greg, and it looks like everything has gone the way it should this time around. You know, the original time that it went, I think there could have been done a lot differently. So I just hope that once the house is sold to the new people, whoever may buy it in the future, that the Harts and the surrounding neighbors are protected.
Okay, in which we have a guarantee from his engineer, and I believe the town's engineer has also signed off on the changes that were made to correct the situation.
Okay,
that
like I
has
said, we
occurred.
did read the minutes. It did seem thorough, but you never know. I mean, that's an intermittent water course. I met Woody Dawson there 25 years ago, and he explained to me that this doesn't happen every year, but when it does happen, it's overwhelming and it does take over the property. And the Harts have been through hell, if you don't mind me saying that, you know, with repairing the property and fixing everything that needs to be done and continue being done to get it back the way it was.
Okay. Well, going forward, you should be covered. So, and if not, we have means to go after the developer.
Great. Well, I thank you for the commission's work.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? No? Okay, and you guys have nothing further?
I don't think we have any further comments.
Okay, so we will close this. Oh, I'm sorry. Commission members, one last thing.
So I went back and I watched all the public hearings so far, looked at all the minutes, and I have one question that, again, sorry, didn't ask it last time, came up after I spent the weekend reviewing everything. If this were submitted as a new application today, would it require any variances to our current regulations or waivers or anything? Does this current property conform?
So, well, one, you know, your standards of the rear lot access gives a provision for modifications, assuming you have the fire department in agreement with those. So I'll give an example. Allen Avenue, Fitch and Allen, we approved that. It was a 4-lot re-subdivision. If you recall, the access way to that particular, to the rear lots there, did not have the gravel strip on both sides the entire way. Instead, because of the slope, because of the nature, it was modified with using some other means to break it up, which was signed off. Mike and Jack, from a public safety perspective, said, this is safe, it satisfies our requirements. You granted that approval. The one issue that you wouldn't be able to was dealing with the driveway that was at the time, at the original submission to the commission was at 14%. It exceeded 10%. The applicant has since modified it. They lowered the grade of the driveway. If you go out there, you could see the soil, et cetera, from his work is upgrading at the edge of the driveway right now. So now it's at, Dave, correct me, 10%? 8.9. So it's lowered it under the 10%. So, I mean, that would meet generally the standards. The original submission at 14%, no, that would have required a waiver/variance, depending on how this came in, if it came in as just a rear lot or was associated with a subdivision.
So again, if this were submitted today as is,
Now, it meets your regs.
regulations.
Okay, any other commission members? Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing. Thank you. Take a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Moved by Mr. Natale, seconded by Mr. Mercado. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, give me a sec, because I'd like to call to order planning and zoning regular meeting for Monday, November 28th, 2022. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes from the public hearing and regular meeting from 11/14/2022?
Motion to approve both.
Moved by Mr. Talley, second by Mr. Mercado. Any discussion, comments on the minutes?
Yes. I had to recuse myself from number 1 application for special permit.
So Maryland needs to change that.
That just needs to be updated that I was not part of that.
And just so she knows, what was number 1? What was the woodworking, right?
140 Commerce Court, correct.
The 140 Commerce Court,
Yes.
okay.
I had the same issue with the application in that meeting, number 5, 4, whatever it was.
You recused yourself?
I was recused on number 7,
Which was for?
the BFAM Investments, David Onofrio.
Okay, so those are two corrections she'll have to make.
There's nothing in there that says that I recused myself, so I just.
Okay, so those 2 applications, you guys are both recused. Any other discussion? Mr. Tedesco?
Minutes of our regular meeting. Below that it says Mr. Mercado, Mr. Cardenas will be recused from items 2 and 3. Then it has the motion to be made by Mr. Mercado.
Hit your mic. Oh, it did say, hit your mic, because I don't know if it's getting picked up.
That's on the regular meeting.
That's the regular
The
meeting.
regular meeting.
So she didn't have it in the public hearing as him recusing himself, but she did have it correct in the regular meeting?
In the regular meeting, on page 2, under item 2, application for special permit for 1125C, the text below that says Mr. Brucato and Mr. Carderas were recused from agenda items 2 and 3. Ms. Downs, Ms. Hilsinger, and Ms. Blake were the alternate members. But then it says motion by Mr. Brucato, seconded by Mr. Carderas.
Yeah, that's, she's gonna have to look at that one too.
If they were recused, they wouldn't have been making the motions and seconding the.
Maybe we should just hold off on these minutes, right, and not vote on them tonight.
You
Just,
could table action on that.
yeah,
Clarify then, I withdraw my motion.
motion, yes, and we'll take it up at the next meeting after she has a chance to make the corrections that need to be made. Okay, communications, Robinson and Cole for 185 Academy.
It's just a siting council application. Just like I told you, when we get these, excuse me, just trying to make sure you're informed of these
Okay,
these
so there's
things.
no action by
No
us, it's
actions
just read it.
requested.
Okay.
And it's self-explanatory. This really is minimum impact from this work. Yeah.
Is there any safety evaluation done on that?
The siting council, yeah, they have their own standards they used both from like a safety standpoint when it comes for impacts for yeah.
See what they're doing from Hillside Cemetery, making it look like a tree.
Yep.
Like a real tree or like the fake one on the highway there?
The fake one on the highway.
They're trying.
So they need to get an artist involved in that whole rendition there.
Okay, under unfinished business, do we have a motion for number 1, the subdivision in Miller, Napolitano, and Wolf?
Yes, you do, Mr. Chairman. A motion to approve application oh, I have the wrong one. It should be application for re-subdivision. I'm sorry, I wrote the wrong,
You got East Point here.
yeah. It should be, I apologize, motion to approve application for re-subdivision on behalf of Miller Napolitano Wolf LLC and TriStar Development LLC, applicant Anthony Pizzone, Esquire, agent. Applications for re-subdivision Stonebridge Crossing, Assessors Map 4, Lot 6, 13, 4, and Map 3, Lot 51, Zone ICSDD. Approvals per plans titled Stonebridge Crossing, Highland Avenue, Dickerman Road, Stonebridge Court, Cheshire, Connecticut, prepared by SLR. Revision date November 1st, 2022. Further, the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission find the applicant has demonstrated compliance set forth in the Cheshire zoning and subdivision regulations.
Move, Mr. Picado, seconded by Mr. Natale. Before we do the discussion, I know Mr. Hilsinger is not voting on this, and Mr. Bowman is also not voting on this. And Mr. Strollo is not voting on it. Okay, so we are using all three, or we're using the other two applicants plus all the members that are present. So any other, after that, any discussion on this motion? It's a very small change, adding to, something that had to come through us. I don't know why it couldn't have been done that way through administratively, but it couldn't. So we're here. No, that wasn't this one. That's the signing is the next one. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously, with Mr. Hilsinger and Mr. Bowman and Mr. Strollo recusing themselves. He's abstaining, sorry. There's two recused and Mr. Strollo abstaining.
701.
Number two, applicant for Pheasant Run LLC. Do we have a motion for that?
Motion to approve application for re-subdivision on behalf of Pheasant Run LLC, applicant Anthony J. Vazone, Esquire, agent. Applications for re-subdivision. The property is located at 813 Jarvis/Moss Farms Road, Assessors Map 26, Lot 66, Zone R40. Approvals per plans provided by the applicant entitled Subdivision of Property Owned by Pheasant Run LLC, 813 Jarvis Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, prepared by R.C.L. Thompson with revision date of November 3rd, 2022. And further, the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission find the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the standards set forth for the Cheshire zoning and subdivision regulations.
Move, Mr. Natale, seconded by Mr. Mercado. Another one seems more just like a technical issue. This one has Mr. Bowman recusing himself. I believe everyone else is still here. That leaves us with 9 members. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. What do you guys feel about the last one we saw with Numfrio? What do you guys want to do?
I'm out of that one.
Me too.
You two are recused, that's fine. Does anyone else want to hear it tonight, or what do we want to do here?
You know what? It's time.
Get rid of it?
He's addressed everything. The only people we're hurting now
With the two
are
people.
the buyers.
Yeah, the buyers are.
That's- You know what?
Yep.
We shouldn't do that to get a pound of flesh. I just want to make the comment for the record that this was brought on entirely by the builder by not conforming to what was originally approved. And the town of Cheshire spent a lot of money in reviewing this, and so did the applicant. And it's sad that we had to get down to this, but that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, can we hear I'm sorry.
I want to make comments too. I don't know if it's before.
Should we make the comments on after we do the motion?
Why don't we make the motion first,
Yeah.
and then we can make the comments?
Yeah.
It's okay. Motion to approve application for modifications of previously approved special permit on behalf of BFAM Investments LLC, owner David Onofrio, agent. Applicant is for applications for the change of to previously approved plans associated with the construction of single-family home residence located at 129 Mountain Brook Circle, Assessors Map 89, Lot 32, Zone R80. Approval is per plans provided by the applicant titled 129 Mountain Brook Circle, Cheshire, Connecticut, prepared by Nafis & Young Engineers Incorporated with the revision date of October 31st, 2022. Further, the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission find that the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the standards set forth in the Cheshire zoning regulations.
Move, Mr. Natale, seconded by Mr. Mercado. Discussion on this motion.
Yes.
Mr. Mercado.
How does Cheshire protect itself from this happening again? Is there anything that can be put in place that after grading's done, before they build the foundation, that we check to make sure they're following their plan?
So what we discussed was requesting a foundation as-built and/or certifications in these tighter situations moving forward. It's what I did in other communities, and I kind of talked to Mike Stroll about it to say, I think moving forward, that's what we're doing.
And somebody that continues over multiple times did not follow plans, are they put on notice? Are there any kind of, anything that pops up that's going to raise a flag when they put in another application?
What we discussed, well, now with our permitting software, it's in better communication with the building department. So that's really what, it's cooperation with the building department, which has been improved lately since I've been here. So moving forward, if an issue like this were to pop up, we would issue a stop work order from a zoning standpoint.
But if
And then-
this developer puts in another plan, does it flag anything to keep an extra eye on?
So we legally, we can't do that, but what we can is just put the measures in place to avoid it. For example, saying, you're building in a tight situation, I need a foundation as-built. And you can't frame the house till I get a foundation as-built. Then, it's kind of like a check and balance procedure. Like I said, we can't go by the name in the application, but we can go by the.
That absolutely has to get done, because what this happened in this situation, he just went forward and built everything he could, everything without, he was still getting all his inspections, everything. So it's a lot easier to have him correct the situation when it's just a foundation in the ground. When he comes to you with the house and saying, what are you trying to do to me? We need some kind of protection that
Agreed.
if we make a decision on something, they're supposed to follow it, and they're not supposed to come back when the project is done and say, well, what am I supposed to do now? I can't knock the house down. We just got to make this work. It doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. And I don't care if you thought we were all irritated, because we were all irritated. It just doesn't fly. What are we doing here if that's the case and people are going to walk all over us? It really, I echo everyone here. That has to change.
And we have talked to attorneys. There's no way that when infractions happen like this, they can't be flagged. Something flags that there's been infractions. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Good.
Yes.
Mr. Bohm.
So Mike, what you're talking about proposing is that there be an as-built done on every foundation that's put in Cheshire?
I think it would be, the zoning officer needs to use discretion on when to use it and when not to. It would make sense, like I said, in these tighter situations where you have significant grading with a house, we want to see a foundation certificate or as-built. Now, foundation certificate could be a letter from a licensed surveyor saying, this foundation is the proper vertical and horizontal location as shown on the approved plans for your building permit, which then would resolve some of these issues. But
We did an application once where the pipe was in the wrong spot. So that would take that away if you had the as-built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure you're not going to, if you're going to do it at everyone, which is okay, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but what we have now is when you build a house, you turn an as-built at the end, which is showing sidewalks, planting, driveway, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I really, if it's just in certain situations, that's okay. I just don't want to see a builder have to get 2 plot plans every time, or 2 as-built every time they do a house.
and I could, maybe for the next meeting, I'll show you what a foundation, what I'm talking about for a foundation certificate, just for education purposes, not to.
I built a house in New Haven 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had 6 inches on each side. That's all I had. And I didn't have to do an as-built, but I did an as-built on a foundation because, again, you didn't want to build a house, but so it can be done. But it is $1,200 to $1,500.
But maybe it's not an
additional cost
as-built.
per
Maybe
house.
it's just a verification that what was there was followed. Mike goes out, has a
Right.
letter to file or something.
I think we're getting a little off topic for this. We would, let's stick to this particular one. We can work on what happens afterwards. But Mr. Natale.
I'll echo what Mr. Kurtz and Mr. Bowman said. I was really disappointed with this application. We shouldn't have had to have this. If the applicant had followed what was originally approved, that letter that we got from his attorney, very disappointed in that. It was uncalled for. I talked about that last meeting. Mr. Kurtz talked about it at the last meeting. The only reason that I'm going to vote in favor of this tonight is with the last question I asked. If it were submitted today, would it be approved per our regulations? If the answer was no, that they needed waivers, they needed something else, my vote would be different. But he put this on himself.
Any other discussion? No. And so Mr. Stroll, you said you were out of this one. You recused. So everyone else here, we have 9 members that we're all here. Oh, I'm sorry, we have 8 members. Mr. Salmon is also recused. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Petition, we have a public hearing scheduled for, this is also going to December? John Torello?
John Torello, yes.
Is there anything else? I mean, we have,
Then the last one is the moratorium
I
application.
understand that, but is there,
Nothing else. at
there's
this point.
nothing else, so it's just going to be,
If anything comes in at this point, we're going to push it off to January if possible.
okay.
Just tell them that, it's a loaded agenda right now.
Can we? Well, it's just, I was just saying, we can set the agenda I can set the agenda afterwards. I'm thinking about moving the temporary moratorium, do that first, get it over with, get it out, and then,
Yeah, maybe we could
We could
discuss
talk
that.
about
We
that.
could discuss the order of that and maybe
okay.
set it up.
I just don't want too much too on this is, because this one's going to take a long time
Yep.
with the neighbors, so, with the Jack's Farm is going to take a long time. All right, anything else come before the commission tonight? No, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Selma, seconded by Mr., I'm sorry.
For a very short meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Natale. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.